Hey everyone, welcome to Average Joe's MMA Podcast. This is your host, Sesko. I'm here with my co-host every day, Tyler.
Let's fucking go, boys! MMA, let's talk about some shit.
Yeah, we're here to cover a very interesting weekend. We're going to cover all the UFC fights on the main card, and we're also going to talk about some major fights that happened in Bellator this weekend.
Absolutely.
And a little bit of controversy maybe at the end.
I think there's so much controversy to talk about. Like cup checks or dick kicks, if you will. We got Conor McGregor flashing people in the Mediterranean. It's a crazy place now.
A lot of dick-based news this weekend in the MMA world.
And we're going to be covering it all. All right. Well, to just hop into it, we actually wanted to just recap this past weekend. We had 2 Bellator events, 1 UFC event. To be honest, they were not the biggest events. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you guys missed these fights, but there were some notable moments that we're going to be going through.
The big change, I guess I want to comment on this because the initial title of the card was Thiago Santos versus Glover Teixeira. Just to clarify the confusion as to why the 2 women are headlining the event so suddenly.
They had switched the card. It's a shame we didn't get to see that fight, but we did see a few good fights. So let's just start it from do you want to start on the Bellator side or the UFC side?
Let's start with the UFC first. We'll cover Bellator last. It's all big names that we'll really talk about.
Okay, sounds good. So the top of the fights that we want to discuss, Bobby Green versus Alan Patrick. Bobby Green had a pretty good showing, right?
Yeah, Bobby Green looked fantastic. So a little bit of a context on the 2 fighters. Bobby Green's an all-rounder. Very good wrestling, very good stand-up. His opponent, Alan, I think it's Alan Patrick. I think he's a Brazilian fella. I think there's like a little twist to how you say it. He's a jiu-jitsu practitioner and a capoeira. So he tried to do like a little spinny like tripod kick once or twice in the fight, but it didn't go well for him at all. Bobby Green dominated the fight. He walked forward with his hands down, sticking his like face out at his opponent, like daring him to hit him.
Wow.
But yeah, his opponent landed a couple blows, but nothing damaging. Bobby Green dominated standing. He dominated on the ground when it went there, even against like the high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner. All in all, very impressed by Bobby King Green.
Nice. Do you know if he's ranked?
I don't think he's ranked yet, but I think like he should be. I mean,
like caliber-wise, he looks like he should be up there, right?
He's fought 3 times this year. This was his 3rd fight in 2020, and the 3rd victory. So he's on a very nice streak. He has a lot of experience, and he's 30 years old. So I mean, a lot of fights under his belt, and experience wins a lot of matches against especially like up and coming streaking talent. Mm. I think he definitely deserves to at least start working his way up the ranking ladder.
Nice, good stuff.
He had an interesting like post-fight interview. He saw that unfortunately the Iranian fighter that Dana White tried to save ended up being executed the other day. Just tragic news. And Bobby King Green took it very personally. He was very hurt by it. He couldn't even do the interview. He just said like goodbye to Michael Bisping and threw the headset away.
I honestly appreciate that because this is a pretty big moment. I mean, we had gotten the president to say something about this. He was unjustly targeted with whatever I think they said he killed a security guard or something, but it seemed to
have a mob that did maybe.
Exactly. So he was just there. It seemed like he was probably peacefully protesting this. Unfortunately, got caught up in the mix and got executed for it. It's such a shame. And I hope if there's any Iranian that listens to this, like we stand with you, the people, governments aside, we stand with you guys. We don't want to see people getting executed. That's not the world we want to live in. So it's a big shame.
Yeah, but I want to just one more thing on Bobby King Green. I really enjoy his personality, like being able to be showcased now. Just getting a lot of victories and a lot of airtime. He seems to be like a very honest, very high energy, very like adamant fella about his beliefs. So it's interesting to see him be so happy after winning 1 fight and then being so devastated hearing the news. A very like dynamic, interesting fighter. I think I want to see and hear more of.
Good stuff. All right, well, hopping into the next fight, there was a lot of controversy in this fight. If you've been following any of the forums or watched any of the recaps, you may know that the fight was actually initially stopped because Mike Rodriguez had kneed Ed Herman into the lower gut, right above his cup area. And
a very clean hit, not even below the belt, even all the way above the belt.
A very, very clean hit. He was actually dominating the fight up until that point pretty heavily. Ed Herman takes a knee to the ground because it hurts so bad in his gut, which can happen. I don't know if it hit his liver.
I understand.
Yeah, like that happens. But in that moment, it looked like that was going to be the end of the fight. It was going to be a KO. The ref steps in and says time. You hear Mike Slow Rodriguez go, time? What the hell? I just KO'd this dude. Why are you calling time? Walks off.
Said nuts.
Nuts, exactly. That's all he saw. That's all he was looking for. It was unfortunate. I saw it again, and it looked like the ref was behind Mike Rodriguez. He could not have seen the hit. It just seemed like based off the reaction, instinctually, he's like, wait, it must have been hit to the cup. So from there, Ed was given the full 5 minutes. He definitely faked it. He acted his way to the full 5 minutes. He walked around, got his composure back. He's a veteran fighter. Got some of the conditioning back because he looked extremely tired. Was actually able to submit Mike Rodriguez, I believe, the next round in the third round of the fight. Right. And this all around was a big shame. Mike Rodriguez definitely deserved the victory. I heard Dana White actually gave him the full winning prize purse after the fight because he said it's actually one of the worst reffing mistakes he's ever seen. I want to say something about being able to use replays, but do you have any thoughts you want to share on this?
No. I was going to say, but Dana White looked at it, and I think Dana White and the matchmakers are going to look at Mike Rodriguez favorably still. He's been performing a lot this year. I hope to see him fighting even sooner, considering he did dominate this fight and do pretty well.
Yeah, and he seems like he's going to be one of those names that's going to be a top contender, if not this second, in a few months, maybe a few years. So the fact that this kind of took him back a notch is just a big shame. If you'd watched the fight, you would know like he was completely dominating. And if you give a guy 5 minutes to recover, it's basically starting a new fight. Right. So the point I wanted to make with the replays is why can't they have, let's say, a 10, 15 second review period? You don't have to completely stop the fight. We don't have to pause everything for a lengthy period of time, which is what they're worried about. Why can't we just take 10, 15 seconds, the ref looks up at the board, he can see the replay once or twice and really get a good eye of what actually happened in the situation? It was a complete misstep, and if there had been a way to reverse his call, the fight, in my opinion, would have been completely different. He would have gotten the KO. Do you think there's place in MMA to have a replay system if it's very concise, very short, to the point, the refs can just look up and see what happened? Or do you think for some reason it's a hindrance?
I mean, I honestly think they should use it more. And if the worry is that they're going to stop the fight and make it like, take time and breaks to look at every replay, I think we just make it so that every time the referee stops the time, like for a timeout or for a cup hit or anything like that, why not just do a quick verification? While the fighters are recovering already anyway, just to not add to the time. Like, I feel like there's already plenty of time. Ed Herman spent probably the entirety of the 5 minutes, or at least close to it, on recovering from the clean hit.
And the ref probably saw he made the mistake instantly. But what do you? You cannot revert a call like that as it stands. So he probably knew he had fucked up big time in the moment. But when you instinctually make a call, you can't really go back on it. So in this situation, it's very tough. But This isn't like the NFL. You don't have to go to the sidelines. You don't have to have 10 referees looking at different angles. Sure, some of the things are very slight. But if you're going to be hitting the groin, it's pretty easy to tell whether you got hit in the groin. If you're poked in the eye, it's pretty easy to tell. If you grab the cage and weren't taken down for that reason, it's pretty easy to tell. So these are things that I feel can be worked through very, very quickly and wouldn't be a big hindrance on the fight in general.
Another thing they can implement is a lot of other sports, they do like replay judges. There's a second referee that is just his only job is to look at replays and watch film to see if like something distinctly got wrong, so he can call into the referees on the ground.
Yeah, I like that
all
too.
Sorts of ways. And also I understand Mike Tyone made a really bad mistake, and a lot of controversy and a lot of repercussions from it clearly. But I mean, what can you do? Like you said, it's not like the referee has the mechanism to reverse his call. How much is it on him and how much is it on the system that he works in and is allowed to operate in, right?
And you do have to kind of feel sorry for the dude, because is he going to get booked for another event? Probably not with the UFC. And this dude's worked his whole career, whatever he's done on the regional circuit, whatever he's done in the UFC. And he had one moment where, just a lapse in judgment cost him the whole thing, when there should be systems in place to stop something like this. So overall, this fight was just a big shame. It looked like he was Slow was about to get the KO. I was really happy for him. I was rooting for him. Ed Herman, though, you got to give him credit. He didn't give up. He stuck through it. He used the time he was given, and he was able to, on the ground, manipulate him and get the submission at the end of the day. So you got to give him credit as well.
I mean, as a fighter, I don't think it's your job to keep the fight fair. You're going to do everything in your arsenal. Of course, you're not going to try to do foul play and stuff like that. But whatever opportunities you're given to, express like advantage in the octagon, I think they're going to do it. So I think Ed Herman capitalized on the opportunity given to him and very impressively got that KO against an opponent who like technically, beat him like momentarily before.
Yep. The next notable fight on the card was the Ottman Isat. You can go ahead and do that.
Ottman Isat.
There we go. Okay, against Kama Worthy, as far as I could tell. So this fight was pretty awesome. Ottman going into the fight was undefeated, but as far as I remember, he was the biggest betting underdog on the card going against Kama Worthy. He was 16-7. He was supposed to be a beast. And within a minute and a half, Ottman's able to land a right hook like he has done in every other fight he's had. KO'd the dude. This guy's got some real power, even though it may not look like it.
Yeah, he has like a little bit of a Francis Ngannou fighting style, but with like a lightweight gas tank,
Yeah, and he's not like a big dude. He doesn't look like he would be knocking guys out like he did, but it seems like every time he connects that right hook, right overhand, there's just no way to stop it.
Maybe he just has a like natural, powerful punching motion, like the Joe Flacco.
It's like Justin Gaethje. He's like, I just have dense bones. I'm just thick.
I mean, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
but besides that, I didn't really have much to say other than keep an eye out for Ottman. I had actually mentioned him because I had seen his previous fight in our last podcast. So keep an eye on this dude. He's undefeated. Any undefeated guy you got to like watch out for. So let's see if we can make a statement in the future. Keep it up. These guys that get a lot of KOs, I typically find eventually they'll run into someone that's good enough on the ground, good enough at wrestling to really get everything out of them. We'll be able to see if they're a well-rounded fighter in general. But up to this point, it's worked for him. So congrats to Ottman.
He's in a division full of killers. The lightweight division is heavily stacked, particularly from people from his part of the world. I believe he's is he like one of the Russian Muslim fellows, I think, or is he from the Middle East?
Let's see.
Either way,
he's from Germany.
Okay. Well, either way, like he has very he's among very like high-powered peers. The lightweight division is not full of slouches, like in the very least. So.
Yeah, and they call him Bulldozer, so it's got to be pretty good.
I agree. So let's move on to the main event of the night, the 5-round fight between Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill. So Michelle Waterson's a bit of a household name in MMA. I think she has, for whatever reason, like maybe it's just the nickname propelled her well, or like early showings in the MMA circuit made her very popular. But this is my first time hearing of Angela Hill, and I was very impressed by Angela Hill's performance and like skill set going into this fight, considering like she only started fighting at 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So
and her record is very deceiving. Her record is 12-9 now. She ended up losing this fight in a split decision. It really could have gone either way. But
right.
I've seen her before. She's like one of the toughest women I've seen, and one of the most determined as well. I do think Angela Hill is a solid top 10 fighter. Michelle Waterson, though, I mean, you got to give her credit. Like, wasn't it a comeback fight for her?
Yeah, Michelle Waterson had been on a kind of a slide doing some, not very good showings. So let's see what her record was going back. So she beat Angela Hill. She lost to Carla Esparza earlier this year. She lost to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She beat Caroline Kowalskiewicz.
Yeah.
And then won a couple fights before that. So it seems like she's coming off of 2 major losses of like the 2, like, I guess, high-level contenders of the division.
Yeah.
Which is, it's not what you want ideally, because now you have to go down and fight like the lower ranks like Angela Hill. But man, that was an amazing fight.
Yeah, it seems like she's been up and down over time. I see in 2017 she lost to Ticia Torres and Rose Namajunas. Then 2018 comes back, gets 2 wins. 2019, like you said. So yeah, I thought it was impressive. I thought it was a good showing for her. It didn't seem like she was the veteran that's on her downturn. It seemed like she's still solidly competitive in the division.
She started very slow, I'll say. She wasn't able to find her distance or land her karate kicks until like later in the fight after she had taken a lot of damage, which worked out this fight, but I don't know like how many, higher ranked women will like take advantage of that early or like slow starting period to do enough damage to compromise you, enough to not let you get the victory.
Which is interesting if you want to transition to the Bellator card. We're talking about the Kat Zingano versus Gabby Holloway. That fight, it started out with Kat coming out of the gate hot, laying it on Gabby. But as the fight went on, Gabby started to get a foothold and started to get it together, even though she didn't end up taking it in the end.
Yeah, Kat Zingano. So just to remind fight fans, she used to be a mainstay in the women's divisions of the UFC.
She's an OG.
She's an OG. She's the only woman to have ever beaten Amanda Nunes. After beating Amanda Nunes, though, she took a lot of damage from that fight from Amanda hitting her. Because, I mean, like, look what Amanda's done to everyone else. And so she lost a few fights, had to go out, do some, different recoveries, maybe some surgeries to get her brain and her eyes and everything back working the way she wanted. And this is her comeback fight. I think maybe a 2-year, 3-year hiatus. Mm-hmm. And she signed with Bellator, and she came up against an opponent who came in pretty heavy for the division, pretty overweight. I think she missed by 5.5 pounds.
Yeah, it was like that's unacceptable. I don't want them calling off the fight for something like that, but that's unacceptable. You should, if you can't make the weight, you shouldn't be signing up for that weight class. And if you're 5 pounds off, you probably knew for a little bit, or you knew you could cut a few more pounds and were like, it's not worth it. I'm already overweight.
Yeah, either way, you don't like to see that. But I think, like you said, Kat Zingano came out hot. I think she showed a lot of, like, her veteran moves. Kat Zingano comes from a wrestling background and a wrestling family. So her ground games where she did most of her best work. Some of the rounds were extremely lopsided with Kat Zingano getting like maybe 20 to 30 strikes into the opponent getting 4 back on her maybe. So very good showing for Kat Zingano. I hope to see her progress again through the women's divisions of Bellator. I hope to maybe see her compete against elite competition like Julia Budd soon. I think that'd be a very exciting, interesting matchup because they're both very strong-looking women, you know?
I think she could be a contender for the Bellator title. So I think Bellator is a great place for her. Unfortunately, it's seen as the UFC retirement home, but she's still a very competitive fighter that is entertaining to watch. And she came out of the gate hot, which I appreciate. She wasn't a slow starter. She went out there and did her job. I thought it was a good fight. Props to Kat. Gabby, I thought she was okay. She started a little too slow and took too much damage during the fight, but she was determined. She was able to come back in the third round and do her own damage. She started to control the fight better at that point, but it was just too late. But with that, I think we should hop into the Machida fight. So Phil Davis versus Lyoto Machida. This is the most disappointing fight of the weekend, in my opinion.
Some people call it the worst fight of the year.
It was just complete inaction. Both of them didn't want to engage. Their plans were stay on the outside and just pick away at their opponent. It seemed like Lyoto Machida was afraid to try to make some kind of engagement. He didn't want to break the range barrier, but Phil Davis was doing a better job of keeping range. So if you're not going to attempt to approach someone and they're keeping you out of range, it's just kind of a stalemate. And Phil Davis would just throw jabs into the air, keep him out, kicks every once in a while. But really, there's nothing of note in this fight, nothing very exciting. Somehow it was a split decision, but I didn't even see a split decision. It seemed like it was pretty lopsided to Phil Davis, in my opinion.
I agree.
Unfortunately, it's not the Machida era.
He's not a... So Lyoto Machida back in the day told a story that he drinks a glass of his own piss every morning.
Yeah, I saw that during the fight.
And I guess the old piss drink isn't cutting it anymore. He doesn't see, it didn't seem like he had any sort of special step going into this fight. You know what I mean? Phil Davis, I think looked like the more composed, more active, more aggressive fighter. I think the interesting thing that I saw, so I hear the commentators talking, I think this makes sense a little bit, that it seemed like Phil Davis was doing the things Lyoto Machida would do normally to his opponent, like the front kick and the knee and stuff. Because I think his legs are longer. I think he's like, I think I can do this better than Lyoto can. And it seemed like he did. So he kept Lyoto away with his, like, Lyoto's very own arsenal.
And apparently Phil Davis, I haven't watched much of him, but he's a history of these not so entertaining fights. Like, he's definitely trying to keep the range. He's not trying to take much damage, which I understand. But overall, it wasn't terribly exciting. Lyoto Machida, just physically, though, he looks like he could be a 185er now. Or he just doesn't – he's no longer the top athlete that MMA requires you to be. Like, during his era, I'm sure what he had was great, but we're in a time where, sure, you don't have to have a six-pack, but there's a certain kind of physique, a certain kind of body you have to even be competitive, and I'm not quite sure at the 205 division he has that.
I mean, I think it's just a natural thing that comes with age. It's something George St. Pierre talked about as he takes fights when he gets older. Your body just shrinks. Like your body just doesn't keep very much muscle on as you get older as a man, unless you're taking like hormones and things that will kind of like I think forbid you from competing in like modern MMA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like maybe like you said, maybe 185's for him, but like how well can his body and his hormones handle like that kind of cut to that weight?
Yeah, and but to me, sadly, it almost looked like he was in there for a payday. And whenever I see that, it's just very disappointing because I don't see much of a future for that person. I know it's this guy's career, and I don't want to shit on him. I know that's how he makes a living. It just seemed like he wasn't too into it, and it didn't seem like he wanted to bring in an entertaining fight, which is disappointing. I hope Bellator cards in the future are a little better. I wasn't very impressed by this weekend. I thought UFC was better this weekend. And with that, let's talk about the controversy in Bellator with the Cup Check, aka Dick Kicks. I think it was like 3 separate fights where it happened, and I believe 2 fights got stopped from it, which is very rare.
Mm-hmm. The first to happen to Bellator was on the prelim actually of the Davis Machida card. It was between Tyrell Fortune and Jack May, 2 heavyweights. So Jack May's like 6'8", Tyrell Fortune's maybe like 5'2", I think. Yeah, 5'2". So Tyrell Fortune threw a knee that connects on normal sized people in the belly. I think because Jack May's an extra 6 inches taller, it got him right on the cup and crumpled him.
It was so bad.
It was not fun to watch.
When you don't have fans and you're hearing these guys yell in pain after being hit, it's so cringy. And he had to be escorted out of the cage because he could not walk, and they had to end the fight. They called it a no contest. Mm-hmm. But something me and you were discussing before, we want to bring it to the audience. They say that it's a no contest because he didn't intentionally hit the guy in the cup. But our point is, how did you ever say that someone intentionally went for it? Like, how would you ever be able to prove that? Like, it doesn't. The whole idea, the concept, doesn't really make sense to me on this front.
I think going off your topic is a great transition into the next dick kick no contest of the night.
Oh, God.
On the main card between Raymond Daniels and Peter Stananik. And I believe Raymond Daniels was the one throwing the kicks. Am I right? Against Peter Stananik with a beard?
I got to pull it up. I'm not sure yet.
But yeah, so that one is, I mean, if you can't prove intent on that one, intent isn't provable. He threw the exact same move twice in a row. He's spinning back kick into his opponent's kicks to get him like right in the dick as his leg was getting lifted up.
Yeah, and they didn't say it was intentional. But if you do it twice, you should be disqualified. Move. Why is that not a disqualification?
I agree, especially if you get the warning at first. Like, yeah, you did this once. Please stop this. This is an issue.
Okay, so we know this is a problem. It happens all the time, and sometimes it changes the tide of a fight. I've seen guys get KO'd before after they get hit, but they want to like tough it out. They're like, no, I can do it. They fight. The other guy comes guns blazing, and they're knocked out 2 seconds later. So as ways to fix this, they're supposedly wearing steel cups. So we have apparently the best cup technology in the world. And we cannot stop this from happening. A thought I had was the guy that gets hit in the nuts hits the other guy in the nuts. Just 1 for 1, an eye for an eye. Or we wear cups that like somehow reciprocate the pain and break your foot or your knee or whatever that comes to hit it. But there has to be some, or you just immediately take away a point, intentional or otherwise. Because we know we don't have a way to judge if it's intentional or not. And these fighters should know to avoid this. I understand they're in a fight. Crazy stuff happens. But they shouldn't get off scot-free for doing it, is what my whole point of this. There should be some kind of repercussion. If that means taking off a point, they should be taken off a point.
I completely agree with you. I think every time it happens, same with eye pokes, honestly, it should be a point taken away because, like, there's nothing you can do. Like what are you gonna do? Like make him like if you give both fighters a break. So while like the fresh fighter is becoming even fresher, while the damaged one's just trying to get back to normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no way to even that out unless you make like if you like dick kick someone, you have to do like jumping jacks during the break.
Dude, this is why we need machines. They need to calculate exactly how hard he got hit and then hit the other guy exactly as hard.
Like bring out the nut tracker.
This is the technology we're looking forward to in MMA, people.
So I was thinking about cup technology, and I was wondering if like they can get the cup and like fill it with some kind of like impact foam. You know what I mean? Just like freshly foam you up before your fight. So it's like, you know, it's pressed against everything.
No, I know what you mean.
To keep you safe.
Because like I'm sure it hurts on the actual genital area, but it must hurt like around it with where the lining of the cup is. It must like indent into you or something.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's absolutely what's happening. I think you got to spread the pressure out more. I mean, think about it. Like even if you get hit like right on the belt line, like right in like the bladder and the pubic area, you know what I mean? That's crushing.
Yeah. So the only thought I have is in hockey, for instance, goalies, they wear like a huge like chastity belt cup thing.
Right.
And I get that would limit your mobility in MMA, but there has to be something better than what we have now. There has to be something else. So yeah, that's our question to you guys. What do you think we should do about this? I think every week we're going to be going over a new MMA rule that we just think is stupid. And as Average Joe's MMA fans, we want to fix because it just doesn't make sense in the sport we love. Free the dick, please. You know, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, the dick kicks and all those fouls and stuff are like they're a detriment to the sport. You know what I mean? You don't want to be seeing fights end like that. You don't want to be seeing that happen to people if you can avoid it.
Yeah, but do you agree? Like, although it's not intentional, if you know you're not going to be penalized, you're not going to try to avoid it.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
You're not going to do anything to intentionally not do it. But if I say, all right, you're going to lose a whole point, and if this goes to a decision, that's a huge loss for you. You may think twice about throwing that kick that might be close, or that knee that's probably too close. So, you know, there has to be something changed. I hope MMA rules, they notice something like this. But if we're being honest, they're probably not looking into this at all. In fact, eye pokes is probably the number one thing they're looking into. And they haven't done anything about it for the past 20 years. So, you know, who knows?
I think we're going to have to see innovation from other franchises and other promotions first, like smaller ones that have more flexibility in their procedure and their process and their regulations. So I would
think quarantine time would be the time to do this for the UFC though. Like, so the event we had last weekend, it wasn't a huge event. Like they're not going to get tons of viewers or whatever. Why not try it on something like that? You know,
I mean, they did it with a smaller cage, right? They just implemented it suddenly, and like people seem to, you know, going for it. Like I don't think people are like that, like recalcitrant to the idea of changing the sport.
That's a hell of a word, dude.
Yeah.
But also, I watched some bare knuckle boxing this weekend, and they have a circular ring, like a boxing ring, with the two ropes on the outside. And I kind of love that. I would love to have different terrains, different fight like areas where if you're better at something, you will succeed better in this kind of terrain. Like a Khabib might not do as well without the cage, for instance. So I would love to see that implemented. Like out in tennis, they have like grass courts or whatever. I think it would be really cool to have some different kinds of cages and rings.
This just makes me think of Pokemon, where they bring like the different like terrains up from like underneath the ground for the different stadiums.
Like there's just rocks. People are like smashing their head on a rock.
Like one's a pool. You got to fight in the water.
Oh my God. Can you imagine Aqua MMA? Oh,
Can you imagine getting like drowned by Khabib?
Holy shit. Okay. Well, another thing to look forward to. To top off that, we're going to go on to our next few topics. So this is outside of this past weekend. We're just going to go over some events that have been happening lately. And then after, we're going to be discussing this weekend because we actually got a huge card coming up. We might hold off some of the discussion to later this week, but we're definitely going to dive into it a little bit. But first, we want to mention, of course, you all probably heard, Conor McGregor was caught flashing a young married woman in the Mediterranean. He also posted on Twitter, he's like, USADA still comes, even though I'm retired. Ha, ha, ha. I'm like, dude, leave the fucking USADA pool if you don't want to be tested. Obviously, it's a publicity thing. But whatever, he's getting his name out there. The one thing that really shocked me about this is his new fiancée, who he has 2 children with, was on the vacation where supposedly he was flashing people. It's a weird situation. What's your take on it?
So I see. I saw it in the news. I saw it like spread out everywhere, and it's one of those things. Like I try to not believe news when it's like that fresh and that hot. Because I was thinking about it, like this could be anything. I was thinking like there's nude beaches in Europe. Maybe he like just walked from like a nude beach to a not nude beach and didn't know. You know, or rode his jet ski with his dick out. Who really knows what's going on, right?
There's
Like
also the
details.
case that he is famous, so sometimes allegations are just out of nowhere. But he was arrested by the police, so that tells me something. It
Yeah,
just
it's
seems
not.
like it was escalated to a degree that wasn't just, "Oh, I'm going to sue you," So
Well, I hope it's a misunderstanding that they can work out. I hope it's nothing like malicious. I hate to see Conor McGregor like acting out in negative ways. You know, makes me like it feel like it saddens the sport that we love because all of the poster children, the star children, are just acting out and doing bad things. Like when Conor McGregor sucker punched the old man or threw the dolly, like that just makes me feel bad for the sport. Like, it's just not a good image for what we're trying to like bring people in.
do you know what's so funny? I heard an analogy earlier with regards to Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson was basically the same person, well, he was probably worse actually,
And much
but
younger.
much younger. But the person was making the point that you are tainting the sport by doing what you're doing, regardless of how exciting it is. It's like having a lemonade stand, and you're getting a lot of attention because you're actually selling cocaine at your lemonade stand, but it's supposed to be a lemonade stand about the lemonade. Regardless of how popular you are, regardless of how many people want to see you, you're selling cocaine out of that. Is that really good for the sport? Probably not. But can we expect people that were able to achieve the heights he was, have the charisma he has, to be normal, to not do crazy shit? It just seems to be in his nature. That's who he is. So honestly, as sad as it is to say, we're probably going to see more of this in the future. I just hope he's able to one day make his way back to the ring instead of being an only prize fighter, being a title contender. Because I thought his Cowboy performance was spectacular. I was like, wow, this dude, he just made a statement. He said he's going to fight 3 times in 2020. He's killing it. I understand with quarantine, he's like, I don't want to fight without an audience. I don't want to fight without fans. But, it just seems like without fighting, he's this person, an uncontrollable person.
He's also like I feel like missing a market in a way. Like fighting right now, imagine a Conor McGregor fight right now during quarantine while everyone's at home. I imagine it would sell like way better than what he would expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like it is also like we have to understand the activity that we're like judging. We're judging cage fighters here. It doesn't necessarily attract it attracts people with certain personality types and certain risk-taking traits and stuff like that. So it's unfortunate we do see stuff like that. Something I'd personally like to see, and I don't know where the UFC would stand on this or something like that, but I feel like it would behoove the promotion to like invest in the psychological health and well-being of their fighters, to have like some kind of I'm not saying like social worker or a therapist or whatever kind of like system they want to set up, but just people to talk to these guys who are like risking their lives. Like, a lot of these guys like live in the MMA gyms that they like train at. You know what I mean? They don't have day jobs. Like they're just kind of skimming by. They're under a lot of pressure. Like when even between like injuries and head injuries and stuff. I feel like a lot of this stuff could be like maybe mitigated, at least from like if you get like younger stars before they blow up into Conor McGregor's and stuff like that.
So do you mean like a sports psychologist or like a behavioral therapist, or like what do you think?
I mean, I don't want to like pick one particular vein, because I think anything in that general area, just a support system of their psychological and like emotional well-being,
I totally agree. I mean, the thing is, a guy like Conor McGregor, he could afford anything. I think it goes back to the personality. That kind of personality wouldn't want that. They don't want to be told what to do. So even if you provide the person, I don't know they would take it. But I agree, there has to be something done about the mental health of fighters, just like in the NFL. I don't know if the NFL has taken any steps, but it's the exact same situation. Do you want people walking out when they get a retirement honor into the Hall of Fame? Do you want them to be mumbling and not know what they're doing and punching people around? If you're thinking the long term for your sport, you want to make sure these guys are good to go even after their careers. Maybe that means you have to have some like classes saying, hey, when you stop competing, that high that you had fighting is not going to be there. So we need to find healthy ways to replace that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I mean, to go what you're saying, financial help services and stuff. I always think about the story of Shaquille O'Neal. So Shaquille O'Neal spent his first $1 million of his bonus within 30 minutes of getting it. right? And you got a call from an MBA like accountant going like, look, Shaq, you can't be doing this. Like, I know you're balling right now. You're going to run out of money like quick. And then Shaq eventually went and become he's like a doctor of business from like some school. He owns like 700 Quiznos across the country. So he's a
total entrepreneur, and he's in the Icy Hot commercials.
Exactly. Oh, he's in those commercials. I think he like asked for like stock in those companies. Like he doesn't do commercials. Like just like Peyton Manning won't do a commercial for something like you won't give him a bite of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like that, like Shaq's like amazing, like entrepreneurial success could be in some way attributed to the support structure that his team put around him by assigning him an accountant and saying like, hey, like, let me teach you how to like use this money responsibly. You know what I mean? Like, and just something like that, just like classes like the UFC could have for guys like, hey, this is the best thing to do when you get like a big bonus check that you don't know what to do with. You know what I mean? Like, don't sink it into a car, maybe get some stocks, maybe get some funds, like try to, help these guys out in the long term. Because I feel like if you have like better, well-adjusted people as fighters, I feel like you'll end up with better fights. People, their motivation will be in check. They're going to be fit and in shape. They're going to, strive to their sport like in a more pure way rather than having to like worry about like their mental demons or their food and stuff. I think it's just to support your athletes is to support your sport.
I think at least for the top 15, that should be the case, because I don't know logistically how you do that for the 400 fighters. I don't know if they could probably afford it, but I don't know.
Offer Zoom sessions, you know what I mean? You don't have to like personalize it for each one like the NBA does because they only have like 12 players on a team. Mm-hmm. Have like a broad spectrum thing, like give them like people they can come talk to, like, like tax attorneys and like finance people.
But then you have a guy like Conor McGregor who has the means to do all this, and he probably is doing that, and he still finds himself in these situations where it's unbecoming of himself to do that.
Well, I feel like it's almost too little too late for him. You know what I mean? Like do you think maybe this, like some part of his behavior could have been stemmed and controlled if they had like gotten this to him sooner, maybe, right?
Maybe. I can't relate to being that kind of superstar. Like Dana White was in a post-fight press conference. They were going, hey, you've partied with him. You party like him. And he's like, he's literally on a different stratosphere than I am with regards to partying. Everyone knows when he goes somewhere, everyone's screaming, yelling. It's like Michael Jackson back in the day. Mm-hmm. So it's like how you expect child stars to become fucked up one day. That's the inevitable outcome of what they're doing. Conor McGregor was probably better off not making all the money he did. As sad as that is, personally, he was probably better off. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Hopefully he can get his shit together. But as we've seen with John Jones, it's not easy. It'll take time. Hopefully he can start smoking weed like Mike Tyson, become an entrepreneur, So
hope he doesn't have to lose all his money like Tyson did.
Yeah, But the good thing about being that ultra world famous is the recognition is always there. For the rest of his life, no matter how irrelevant you think he is, he'll be able to make some money up by putting his name on something.
I agree. Yeah, I hope to get him back into fighting because I feel like it's a great output for all of his kind of reckless energy. I think he'd behave better if he was fighting more frequently.
I totally agree. And I think he planned on it, but I also think quarantine's driving us all crazy. So maybe that's part of it. The next topic I wanted to bring up before we talk about this weekend's fights was Poirier declining the Ferguson fight due to a contract issue with the UFC. But then Tony Ferguson coming out after saying, hey, UFC, pay this guy what he's worth. And to me, that's nuts because I don't think that's ever happened before. It's always the other guy going, he was scared of me. He doesn't want this. But Ferguson's like, no, pay him what he deserves. Obviously, Ferguson's happy with what he's getting because he's willing to take the fight. I'm very happy to see fighters standing up for one another because it shows that you aren't as replaceable as the UFC wants to make you believe you are. Like, Dustin Poirier is a crazy good athlete. Like, he was beat by Khabib, but everyone was beat by Khabib. If you see his other fights, they're incredibly entertaining. He does these charity work in like Africa. He's like an amazing dude. I think he's a real estate agent too. He's just killing it on all fronts. He deserves to be paid. I obviously don't know the intricacies of the contract, but he deserves to be paid a decent amount. Hardcore fans, I don't know if it's going to be the biggest pay-per-view of all time, but hardcore fans are like, this fight is going to be crazy. Dustin Poirier versus Ferguson, it's going to be a bloodbath. These guys are going to go at it the whole time. Like, I would be super excited to see that fight. If Ferguson wins, he gets this probably shot at Khabib again. Like, all in all, I would love to see the fight. It was a shame we didn't get to see this booked for October, I think it was.
Yeah, I agree that it's a shame. I was very excited, looking forward to it. But just like you said, I agree. I'm glad to see fighters like, asking and like in some ways demanding like the things they want, the things they need. And I think eventually they'll figure it out, especially with the support from other fighters. You know what I mean? It's hard to like, again, like once you prove yourself like unreplaceable in some ways. Dustin Poirier, he's put on amazing performances. His last like 8 fights have been like 7 like performances of the night or something. Like he every single time he goes out there, he puts on an entertaining fight. He's extremely competitive. Yeah, I think the UFC should pay him out. I think a lot of people will watch it. People love Tony Ferguson. People love the lightweight division. I think that goes back to like all those fights. Any combination of the top 5 fighting, I'm super excited for.
Yeah, I totally agree. With that, though, I think we should hop into this weekend a little bit. What were your thoughts? Do you think we should go over the whole card now or just briefly touch on it and later in the week come back, start giving our predictions?
I think we should touch on, like, just give a quick overview of, like, what we see in each fight, who we think is exciting, who we think is notable, and then we'll go into depth and do predictions next time.
Awesome. Okay, so on this card, Saturday, September 19th, you guys should all tune in. This is going to be a crazy good card. It's a great time to be an MMA fan. We got really good fights, especially on the main card. So on the main card, you mentioned something about Kevin Holland and Darren Stewart.
Yeah, so Darren Stewart, I think Darren Stewart's coming off a loss recently, but he's one of the fighters that's committing to fight a lot in 2020. He won a fight recently by guillotine a couple months ago. I think he's a very like high-level all-around competitor against Kevin Holland, who in his most recent outing knocked out I can't remember his first name, but it was Buckley, a very like stout, strong boxer. So Kevin Holland's like one of the lanky, like maybe even like longer for body weight than John Jones kind of types. He wins his fights by knocking people out, by like snapping them by like the very last bit of their punch. You know what I mean? Like a perfectly timed, perfectly spaced kind of thing. Mm-hmm. He taunts, he flaunts, he does a cool dances during his fights sometimes. Yeah. I think Kevin Holland makes the fight exciting, and his opponent Darren Stewart makes it competitive. So I think it's a good matchup.
Great. The next fight, Mackenzie Dern versus Ronda Marcos. I know Mackenzie Dern's a beast, so I can't say I know much about Ronda, but Mackenzie Dern's a great fighter. The next fight, Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spann. So Johnny Walker is on a 2-fight skid, but we all know he's potentially one of the most entertaining fighters in all of the UFC. I think he's going to rein it in a little bit because he needs a win on this fight. His hype train was derailed. I mean, if you lose twice to anyone, your hype train is going to be derailed. But he's still incredibly athletic. He seems to have the talent. He got caught in his who did he fight? Anderson.
Corey Anderson got him real bad.
He got him real bad, but he was number 6, I think, at the time. Like Corey Anderson's no slouch. So I'm really excited to see this. I think Johnny Walker takes it. Johnny Walker now actually has Conor McGregor's old coach. That's who he's been working with. He's been working he's been working with top-tier talent. He's incredibly long, incredibly agile. He reminds me of the who's the other dude? Michelle Pereira. He's like a Michelle Pereira type. But I personally think this next fight really going to rein it in. We're going to see if he's able to become that top 5 challenger. We're going to see if he's able to be fundamentally good enough before he throws in all the crazy shit we know he can do.
I want to see him. So coming off of 2 losses, I feel like it changes your mentality a little bit for the better or for the worse. I don't want to see any caution and fear. I just want to see more like focus into what he's doing. I think a focused Johnny Walker is a very dangerous like opponent in any condition.
Absolutely. The next fight, I think a lot of people are excited for this one. Khamzat Chimaev. Did I say that right?
It's Chimaev or Chimaev.
Yeah, okay.
Something like Khamzat.
Versus Gerald Mercier. Dude, these guys got to fix their names. I don't know what's up. Like, we need to get some like English translations for these names. So we got Bobby Greg.
yeah. Gerald Mearshart should be, Gerald Michaels.
Yes. So if you don't know, this Khamzat dude, the first time he fought in the UFC was at, I forgot it was 185. Beats the guy to a pulp. It was like 70 punches to 2. And then 10 days later takes a fight at 170, different weight class, and does the exact same thing. This dude's 8-0, undefeated, doesn't have much experience, but he's kind of exploded onto the scene because who takes 2 fights in 10 days and then on top of that, 2 different weight classes?
To comment on that as well, he's also currently double booked. So if he wins this fight, he fights again next week against Damian Maia, I believe.
And Damian Maia is legit. He's number 6.
A contender, yeah.
So this dude is hopping from his first UFC fight a few months